Hello everyone, this is Code Ode. Welcome back. Today I want to show you how to work with forms in React, and we'll be also using TypeScript. We'll be creating a very simple contact form, so let's see it in action. If I click on this send message button, you can see that we have proper validation. Now let's fill this form with some valid data. Test@test.com. Let's see something like hello there, how are you? Something like this. Okay, and now if we click on this send message again, this is gonna work. And as you can see, we are simulating a backend request. So I want to show you the whole flow for this contact form. We'll be using React Hook form for the form management, Zod for the form data validation, and React Hook form resolvers for connecting the Zod package with the React Hook form package. We'll be also using TailwindCSS for styling. So let's get started. So the first thing that we have to do is to create our React project. So open up your terminal window and then npm create vit at latest. So we'll be using vit to create our React project. Press enter. Now let's give this a project a name. So React Forms, press enter. Let's choose React. Let's choose TypeScript. Now cd React Forms and then npm install. So this is gonna take a bit, so let's wait it out. Nice. Now that this is done, let's install all the packages that we need. So npm install. This is gonna be React Hook Form and then Zod and then let's see hook form /resolvers and TailwindCSS at TailwindCSS vit. So let's press enter. This is gonna take a bit, so let's wait it out. Nice. Now that this is done, let's open this project in our favorite code editor. So I'm using Visual Studio Code. Okay, so let's clean this project a bit. We don't need this file. Let's see, let's go to app.tsx. Let's remove all of this. Let's add an h1, and this is gonna be, let's see, h1. And this is gonna be React Forms, like this. Let's remove this and all of this. Okay, so let's give this a Tailwind class, like this. Now let's go to, let's see, vitconfig.ts. Let's bring in Tailwind CSS in this plugins array. So make sure to import it. Nice. Let's go to index.css and let's remove everything from here and import Tailwind CSS like this. Nice. Now let's go to the terminal window and let's run npm run dev. And let's press enter. Okay, so now let's open this URL in the browser. Awesome. So this is our basic React project. So let's go back to the code editor and we'll be working inside this app.tsx component. And the first thing that I want to focus on is the HTML structure. So let's do that. Let's add a div. This is going to have a class name of min age screen, flex, item center, justify center, bg gray is going to be 50. Now let's add another div inside that div. Class name width full, max width is going to be large, bg white, rounded to XL, shadow and padding is going to be 8. Now let's add a title, so contact us. Okay, and let's give this a class name, text to XL, font bold, text center, and margin bottom is going to be 6. Okay, now let's add a form. We're not going to have an action, but a class name, text, let's see, spacing, let's see, space y5. Okay, now let's add a div. This is our first input field, so let's add a label for name, so name. Okay, and this is going to be our input. But now let's give this label a class name, so block text small, font medium, text gray, 700, and margin bottom it's gonna be 1. So let's close the sidebar. Now for the input type is gonna be text, placeholder is gonna be your name, Let's give this a class name. So with full, padding x4, padding y2, border gray 300, rounded XL, like this. Focus is going to be outline none, focus is going to be ring 2, and focus is going to be ring blue 400. Nice. And now let's copy this for the email field. So let's do this. This is going to be email. Let's change this to email. Let's update the type and the placeholder. So you@example.com. Okay. Now for the text area, so let's copy this one more time. Okay, so this is gonna be message, okay, no type, and this should be text area like this. Okay, let's add a rows property, so this should be 4. Okay, now for the placeholder, this is gonna be write your message here. And finally, we need to add a button. So this is gonna be, let's see, button. It's gonna have a type of submit. Let's give this a class name. Okay, with full, padding y2, padding x4, bg green 600. Hover is gonna be bg green 700. Text white, font is gonna be medium, rounded XL. Shadow transition. Okay, now for the disable state, opacity is gonna be 50. And once again, for disable, cursor not allowed. Now let's give this button some content, send message. And with this, we are done with this HTML structure. So let's go back to the browser and you can see our contact form right here. Nice. So let's go back to the code editor and let's start working on the actual functionality for this contact form. So the first thing that I want to focus on is validation. And for this, we are going to use that Zod package. So Zod is a validation library built with TypeScript in mind, which means we can define schemas for data validation, which act as the source of truth. And from those schemas, we can automatically generate TypeScript types, which means Zod handles both runtime validation, so validating our forms, and static typing. So we don't have to do things twice, define the validation rules and define a type. Now, a schema is just a blueprint for our data, how we want our data to look. So now let's see it in practice. Import Z from Zod, like this. Now let's define our contact schema. So this is where we define the validation rules. So this is going to be z.object, and we need to provide an object with all the fields that we want to validate. So name is going to be z.string, and it's going to have a min length of 2, and we need to provide an error message. So name must be at least 2 characters. Okay. Now for the email, this is going to be z.email, and let's provide an error message and valid email address. Okay. Now for the message, this is going to be z dot let's see, string dot min, and this is going to have a min length of 10. And the message, the error message is going to be message must be at least 10 characters. Okay. Okay, now that we have the schema, the next thing to do is to get a TypeScript type out of this. So we have to infer a TypeScript type. So type, this is going to be contact. Let's see, contact form data, and this is going to be z.infer, and then we say type of, and we provide that contact schema. And this is how we get a TypeScript type out of this Zod schema. Awesome. So now the next thing that I want to do is to bring that React hook form package and the Zod resolver so that we can connect the Zod validation library with the React hook form package. So let's see, import use form, and this is coming from React hook form, and then import Zod resolver, which is coming from that add hook form resolvers Zod. So this React Hook Form package provides all the functionality that we need in order to work with forms, from form state, validation, form submission, and so on and so forth. And all this functionality is provided using hooks. Okay, and this use form is the main hook provided by this package. Okay, so now let's use this. So let's go to app, const, an empty object for now, and we want to say use form. Okay, so this hook accepts a TypeScript generic, and it's going to be that contact form data, so that we have type safety for our form. Okay, and we need to provide some configuration, and this is going to be the resolver, and we need to provide Zod resolver, and to this Zod resolver we need to provide a contact schema. Nice. So now our form is tied with this contact schema, which means we can only work with input fields that we have provided right here. Okay, so now let's destructure some data that we need. We need register so that we can connect input fields with the form state. We need handle submit for form submission. Okay, we need form state. This is going to be an object from which we choose the let's see, errors, because we need to show the errors, and is submitting if we want to track this. Okay, and the next thing that we want to bring in is reset, so that we can reset the form state if we want. Nice. Now let's create a custom onSubmit function. So this handle submit is going to accept a callback, which is going to be our custom onSubmit function. Okay, and this is going to take some data, which is going to be of that contact form data type. And all I want to say is console log data. Nice. So now the next thing that we have to do is to connect this form with our form state. So let's do that. Let's go to form, then let's see, on submit. Like this is going to be that handle submit, which is going to take our on submit function. Okay, now let's go to the first input, and we need to register this with the form state. So this is going to be, let's see, register, and then we pass the name of this field, which is going to be name. Okay, and we need to deal with the errors. So let's see, this is going to be if error, let's see, error's name, then I want to show something, and this is going to be a paragraph. Let's see, errors, like this. So errors dot name dot message, and we need to provide a class name for this, which is gonna be, let's see, text small, text red 500, margin top is gonna be 1. Okay, now regarding this class we need to make some modifications. Let's use this syntax like this. Okay, now if we have errors for this field, so this is gonna be, let's see, errors.name, then I want some classes, otherwise I want other classes. Okay, so if there are no errors, I want to show this, and this is gonna be focus ring blue, like this. Okay, so like this. Now if we have errors, this is gonna be border red 500, focus is gonna be ring let's see, red 500, like this. 500, nice. Okay, now let's do the same for the other field. So this is gonna be, let's see, register, and then email. Okay, we can copy this to save some time. So the class name, let's paste it here, and we can do the same for this error message. Okay, and this has to be email, so let's replace this. Okay, now let's do the same thing for the text area. So dot register, we are basically destructuring the result of this register function. Let's provide the name of this field. It's gonna be message. Okay, now let's copy the class name to save some time. So let's paste it here. Let's bring in the error message. Okay, so right here, and this has to be for the message. So like this and like this. Nice. Okay, this should be message. And that is all that we need to do for now. The next thing that we have to do is to test this in the browser. So let's do that. Okay, so now let's check if the validation is working. You can see that we have a proper validation. Let's fill some data for the name. You can see that everything looks fine. Now let's check the console. Okay, so let's fill all the data. So this should be test@test.com, and this is a message. Now let's click on this send message button, and you can see that we have this in the console, which means everything works fine. Nice. Now the next thing that we have to do is to simulate, to fake an actual backend request so that we can see this fully. So back to the code editor. Now let's fake an actual contact form request to the backend. And this is gonna be, let's see, const fake contact request like this. This is gonna take some data, which is gonna be of that contact form data type. Okay. And this is gonna return a promise, which promises are used to work with async operations. Okay, and we can provide a generic for this, which is going to be the data that's going to be returned. So this is going to be success, which is going to be of type boolean like this. Okay, and the promise is going to take an executor function like this, which is going to take the resolve and let's see, reject, but we are not going to deal with reject. Okay, now let's add a console log. And this is going to be sending contact form data to server. Okay, data. And now, in order to actually simulate this request that it's going to take some time, we can do something like set timeout like this. And this is going to say resolve to basically fulfill this promise, which means it's going to return the data that we want. And this is going to be the data, success true. And let's say this is going to take 2000 milliseconds, which means 2 seconds. So now let's use this. We have to turn this onSubmit function into an async function, which means JavaScript is going to wrap a promise around the value returned by this onSubmit function. And something really cool about this React hook form package is that when this handler submit takes in an async function, when the form is being submitted, this is submitting is set to true, and when the promise resolves, this is submitting is going to be set back to false, which means we can track the form submission. So let's do that. So let's add the body of the function, and this is going to be const response like this. Okay, await fake contact request. Let's pass the data. Now if response.success, because this is what we return, this is going to be alert, going to be message sent like this, and we want to reset the form state like this. Nice. So now we can go to our button. So let's go right here, and we want to set this disabled. Okay, when the form is submitting, so is submitting like this, and we want to show a different message. So if the form is submitting, we want to show, let's see, sending. Okay, otherwise we want to show that send message text. So this should be a ternary expression. Nice. Now let's test this in the browser. So back to the browser. Now let's fill this contact form with valid data. John Doe, test@test.com, and hello there, how are you, for the message. Now let's click on this button, send message. You can see that it is disabled. The text change to sending, which means the form is submitting. And when the promise resolves, we get this message sent notification, which means everything works fine. And you can also see that the form state is being reset once this is done. Awesome. So I want to show you a second example. The first example, the contact form, was about sending data to some backend. But now I want to show you how to deal with updating data. Okay? So what we want to do is to update a user profile. So the first thing that we want to do is to set the Zod validation, this profile schema. And you can see that we have two fields, name and email. Okay, and then we get a TypeScript type out of this schema. Now let's go to this app component. We use this use form hook right here. Okay, and then we provide a TypeScript generic that profile form data, and then the resolver, and something new, we provide some default values for our form state, which means we set the name and the email to some empty strings. Okay, and now in order to fill the form state with some actual data, we use this use effect, which only has one dependency, reset. And we define here this fetch user profile async function, which is going to simulate an API request to fetch the user. Okay, and then using this reset function, but now with some actual data, we can update the form state. Nice. And then we call this fetch user profile to actually get the data. And then we have this on submit, nothing new. And this is our form. Starting from here, this is our name field, this is our email field, and this is our button to submit a field. So the only thing new about this is setting some default state. And in order to do that, we use this reset function, which can be used to reset the form or to set some to update the form with some different state. Okay, so now let's go to the browser. Let's refresh this and see it in action. And you can see that this is working. Awesome. And this is basically all I wanted to show you about handling forms in React. And of course, I advise you to check the documentation for those packages because there's so much more about them. If you enjoyed this and if you really like this, please like and subscribe, and see you next time with some more exciting stuff. Bye bye.